Welcome back to Raptor-One.
Raptor-One, Voyagers of the Stars. Season 2, Chapter 7. The Quiet Fire. Return to the hall. The pocket took Raptor-One in with the same unshowy grace as before. The ring unfolded. The corridor's ribs thrummed like a deep breath. The measure throat waited with its plain lattice and its two medians, bands warm as coals under ash. They did not need to be remeasured. Posture remembered posture. Still, the tall median touched the lattice with 2 fingers the way a physician takes a pulse, and listened to the ship through the crew. "You brought something that warmed you without needing light," they said, not asking. Tessa lifted the cloth pouch. Within, the seed from the under-eyes chamber lay quiet and correct. No glow, a pulse like a thought that keeps its own time. The band at her throat stayed cold. Good. Not kindled, Saran said. Entrusted. Then we will not try to own what was given, the elder replied from the hall's doorway. Their voice, flat as bread, warm as bread, filled the corridor with permission and caution both. Come, the hearth is ready. The room that does not perform. The Accord's hearth was not an altar. It was a workbench that had learned humility. A low table of crystal turned dull by years of elbow. 7 shallow bowls arrayed around a basin of tuned water. Above it, a hood on counterweights hung like a dark bell, lined with heat-shedding fins that Varric admired on principle. The walls carried rules everyone knew by now. And no names until offered. No lights brighter than the band. No questions you are not ready to answer yourself. No broadcast. Leave room. Katrin stood with her scarred hands folded, a sling of rope at her hip, a souvenir of trust. Pell lurked under the hood's counterweight, grease under their nails and pride barely leashed. The organizer with the weathered face counted bowls instead of people. The medians tuned the room with their breath the way a carpenter checks whether a frame has turned true. This is not a ceremony, the elder said, though it would look like one later in memory. Banking is work. We call it firewatch. Varric's mouth did that not quite smile. Good name. Set the seed, the tall median said to Tessa. Not in the basin. On the rim. On the edge, the second median added, so it can listen to the room decide how to hold it. Tessa set the pouch's contents on the basin's lip. It sat like an egg that had decided to be a stone until asked correctly. Ira exhaled, long and light, and the water answered with a tone you didn't hear so much as feel in your wrists. Cyrus clipped the blind drone to a low shelf with the lens turned toward the floor. He placed a blank clay token beside it and rested his hand there. Witness, he whispered, without shout. The organizer's mouth moved a fraction. Approval granted, not bestowed. Darrow tied Katrin's door-hold knot around a leg of the workbench, then around his wrist, 2 meters of slack between. Not for drama, for truth. If the room asked him to let go of something, the knot would let him, without lying about it. Chiron stood opposite Varric and folded his hands into his sleeves. No comms, no tricks. Questions arranged themselves behind his teeth and waited their turn. Saran took the position no one marks on a map, the place where you can see every hand without becoming the reason any of them hesitate. The chair in their hollow did not press here. The table was enough. Terms of Firewatch. The elder spoke as someone who had explained this to every kind of grief. 7 terms, they said, because the Accord likes numbers that can be counted with breath. Do not ask the seed to be a son. It is not your savior. It is a tool other hands may have shaped to hold a kind of listening you can borrow. No sudden heat. Warmth travels through rooms. Make it think it is weather. All voices plain. No soaring, no cleverness. Beauty is a kind of pressure. Count the room, not yourselves. If your pride swells, stop. If your shame swells, stop. The hood drops if the band warms. If a keeper's curtain tests the pocket, we choose to be boring together. If it will not bank, we stop. Leaving unlit is a choice that keeps rooms alive. What you keep, keep now. Names, voices, wonder, spite and craft, questions, audience without shout, choice. Lay them on the table as you did when the sky turned red. They did, not in speeches, objects and postures. Darrow set 5 small stones from 5 worlds along the bench's edge. He did not say the names that attached to them. He did not need to. Tessa placed her shard beside the seed and hummed the plainest note she knew. Ira opened her sketchbook to a page where a circle incomplete by a finger's width framed 5 linked hands. She set her pencil down and chose not to draw anything else. Varric laid a hinge. Not pretty, true. Chiron removed from his inner pocket the folded confession he had written on Hull stencil, unfolded it once, showed a single line to the table, and refolded it. Cyrus palmed the blind drone and let it purr against the wood like a small animal at rest. Saran put both palms on the bench and allowed the room to see that they were not shaking. "Begin," said the tall median. "Banking." Ira did not lead. She counted. A slow for that felt like weather. Tessa set her note under the count, late by a half-breath the way the medians had taught in cross-grit. Plain, stubborn, the tone of care that does not seek attention. Varric breathed on a fin in the hood until it sighed and took heat the way a good story takes blame from a friend. Chiron watched for questions turning into answers and tapped the bench once when he saw pride rise, twice when shame tried to take its place. Both taps meant stop. Cyrus matched time with 2 fingers on the clay token and thought of an audience with only 6 faces and felt full. Darrow watched the rope for lies. A knot that forgets itself is a dangerous sermon. Saran held the hole in their hollow like a bowl, nothing more. The seed did not glow. It warmed, not to touch, to posture. The basin's water took that warmth like rain. Plain, the second median murmured, not praise, calibration. Keep late, the elder added. If you arrive on top of the seed, it will learn to please you. We prefer tools that do not flatter. They kept late. Tessa's hum never rose. Ira's count never hurried. The hood above them accepted the room's heat and returned boredom to the pocket. Pell watched its fins with the kind of joy only a mechanic can call reverence. A tone thickened, not louder, truer. The bowls around the basin sang barely, a chord found without being aimed for. The bands at the median's throats warmed a little and then fell back, a tide keeping prudence. Now ask, the elder said, eyes on Saran. Saran did not ask, will you light? They asked, what work do you want to be allowed to do here? Their hands did not leave the table. The answer came as alignment. The seed's warmth ran into the basin and ringed it. A seam you couldn't see a moment ago outlined itself in the water like a map drawn with breath. Ira's pencil twitched reflexively. She did not lift it. She counted instead. There, that, 2 beats and a rest. What does it want? Katrin asked softly. To keep time, Ira said, tears making the rim of the basin double. Not to sing, to hold a count other voices can use. Then we bank it to hold, the elder said, not to burn. Varric adjusted the hood's counterweight with 2 gloved fingers. The fins sighed. Heat ran along them to ground like a rumor too boring to spread. Chiron's mouth tilted. A radiant metronome, he said. Of course the thing under ice would teach patience. Cyrus's grin, small and true, found him without performance. I can sell patience, he whispered, then corrected himself, because he is learning. I can tell patience. Tell it late, Chiron said. Late can save, Ira breathed, and the room agreed. The hood. The band at Tessa's throat stayed cold. The hall did its work in quiet. All the same, the organizer moved their palm over the hood's lever and kept it there. Habit is a kind of prayer. 3 more counts, the tall median said. They held. No one reached for more. The seed did not brighten. It took its place the way a sturdy chair takes weight and refuses to wobble. The bowls around the basin hummed a hair under human hearing. Darrow's rope neither tightened nor slackened. Truth. Enough, the elder said, and the word did not dismiss. It kept. Ira lifted her hands a fraction and let the count go. Tessa unhooked her note from the seed and left it on the table like a folded cloth. Varric released the counterweight a half finger and watched heat settle obediently. Chiron set his palms flat and allowed his questions to wait their turn. Cyrus withdrew his hand from the clay token and felt it cool. Darrow loosened his knot one hitch and stopped on purpose. Saran lifted one palm. The room exhaled. The seed stayed warm. The basin's rim kept the seam visible, not as a performance, as a promise. When someone needed the count, they would find it. Banked, the second median said, voice nearly fond. Banked. The hall echoed, not with noise, with relief. The cost and the weather. They ate after, not before. Thick broth in enamel cups, bread that steamed in the hand, salt that made everyone remember the under ice for a breath. No toasts. The elder lifted their bowl in the direction of the hood and said, payment made. It meant, heat cost us nothing, we need more. Pell unfolded a grease-smudged diagram and slid it to Varric without ceremony. Fin profile that lies to keep her curtains, they said. If doctrine wants to be sure, this will keep it undecided. Varric slid back his hinge trick. Notes in the margin. Bend for delay. Don't ask it to forgive you. Cotran wrapped a short length of rope around Darrow's wrist and taught him, with a thumb on each of his knuckles, a quieter not meant for tying grief to a table until it stops thrashing. For rooms where we have to talk, she said. Cyrus handed the organizer a paper packet like a conjurer palming nothing. The Dead Man Drift can. They would print later, containing coordinates, testimony, nothing that hummed. The organizer nodded once. Stories that travel late. The right sort. Chiron asked permission with a tilt of his head and received it. The seed will not make us loud, he said to the hall. It will make us precise. We will fail it if we confuse those. The elder's scar moved. Then be imprecise where joy is required and precise where fear is. Lamps lowered. Bowls stacked. The hood sang itself cool. Only then did the hall allow news to enter. The tall median laid 2 pieces on the slab, a bent panel etched with Autom timing marks and a shard as black as a closed eye. Keeper curtains have changed lanes, they said, closer to Gray River's mouth. They are not sweeping. They are waiting. And this, the organizer added, tapping the black shard, is a rumor we will treat as weather. A silencer relay blinked near Velt Drift for more than 13 minutes. We have never seen it remain that long. Tessa's hand drifted to the seed unconsciously. It stayed warm. It did not try to be brave. Windows smaller, Varric said. Room still real, Ira replied. Chiron's hooded gaze shifted to Saran. The gate is learning to stay open. The stories we choose from now on will be tested for patience rather than daring. Saran accepted that like a weight carefully set where it won't bruise. Then we will make patience legible, they said, and we will move before waiting becomes trapping. The elder inclined their head. The hearth holds your ember until you leave. It will not grow. It will not cool. It will keep time for you while you sleep. Tessa exhaled something that was almost a sob and almost a song. Thank you, she said, and the hall, being a hall, accepted thanks the way rooms do, by not making a spectacle of it. Watch. They took a watch in the pocket because leaving immediately would have been bravado, not prudence. Varric slept with one hand under the hood's counterweight. Darrow slept with the rope looped loose around his wrist. Ira dreamed of timing marks that moved like Aurora and woke with the feeling of having remembered a star's name. Chiron didn't sleep. He counted questions until one asked him back. Cyrus filmed nothing and discovered that the hunger quiets when you feed it with being present. Tessa lay beside the table and felt the seed keeping time with the bowls, not needing her to hum and loving her for staying anyway. Saran sat awake long enough to make 2 lists in their head. What they would carry if forced to choose, and the order in which they would throw those things into the sea. In the second watch, the pocket's ring chimed a note of warning no visitor could hear. The median's bands warmed and cooled. Keeper curtains sniffed the far edge of the pocket and, finding boredom, drifted on. Room, the elder said when the shift ended. Still ours. Departure line. They did not make speeches at the door. They did the work. The seed went into a travel sleeve of felt, then into a sling Varric fashioned from cloth and cord. It rode at Tessa's sternum again, a count that traveled. Ira folded the basin's timing seam into memory, not a map, so it couldn't be stolen if she was taken. Darrow retied his peace binding with an uglier knot and looked Katrin in the eye as he did. She grinned like weather. Chiron slipped the blank clay token into a pocket beside the confession and felt them weigh equally. Cyrus pressed his brow to the blind lens and whispered, "Later," which was a promise to the right audience. Varric checked the hood's fins one last time. They sighed like content machinery. Saran touched the rules on the wall with 2 fingers, leave room, and tucked the touch into the place where orders come from. At the measure throat, the medians met them again and lifted their palms. "Bring 7, the tall one said, as blessing and reminder. Blind lens, the organizer added, mock stern. Cyrus saluted with 2 fingers, honest stern. Leave room, the elder finished, and the door remembered. Raptor-One took them back like a house takes people who know which boards creak. The pocket let go. Gray River leaned, willing. Outside, curtains repositioned, relays whispered, weather changed. Inside, a candle counted. Saran settled into the chair, not to own it, to agree with it. Next leg, they said. We run between curtains, and we do not explain ourselves to any of them. Where? Ira asked, not for a map, for a star to love. South of Velt, Chiron said, the question choosing him. Where rumor is weather, and weather is rumor. Then south, Saran said. Late, plain, stubborn. Tessa set her palm over the seed. It answered with a warm, workmanlike ready. Darrow's rope lay honest across his knees. Varric laid a knuckle on a panel the ship, like to be tapped. Cyrus smiled at a silence he would one day tell correctly. Ira counted 4 with an empty hand and felt the constellation keep time. Chiron did not ask his question aloud yet, and in not asking, asked it right. The ship tipped her bow. The quiet fire held. Waiting weather. Keeper curtains had stopped behaving like patrols and started behaving like furniture. They hung in space at angles that made no navigational sense unless you were trying to force travelers to explain themselves. Beyond them, a silencer relay blinked with new patience, the kind that thinks it is a fact because it lasted longer than yesterday. Raptor-One slid between those shapes like a thought spoken under a blanket. No flares, no pings. Varric's heat shedder rode the rails ready. Ira traced the humbler paths, habits, not lanes, by feel more than by scope. The ember from the under-ice chamber sat at Tessa's sternum, a count keeping its own count, warm and workmanlike. Curtain ahead, Chiron murmured, hood low over his eyes. Not sweeping, waiting. Late, plain, stubborn, Saran said. The words were plan, posture, prayer. Tessa settled into cross-grit, the unpretty hum that asks doctrine to wait for itself. Ira laid a thinner tone beneath. Varric flattened waste heat into a slope so boring it read like old machinery. Darrow checked knots that should not need checking and checked them anyway. Cyrus set the blind drone on the dash facing the bulkhead. The lens purred like a cat sleeping through a storm. The first curtain nosed their hull like a clerk who wants to be done for the day. It found boredom, late tones, no reason to escalate. It moved on. Again, Saran said softly, because victory is an invitation to hurry and they were not accepting invitations today. The relay that stayed. The silencer relay ahead held its blink as if clenching a jaw. It wasn't the gate. It was a tooth, but a mean one. Within its reach, radios yawned. Choir shards and pockets went politely deaf. The ember's count did not falter. It kept time the way a ship keeps old promises. Not loudly, not for applause. We'll have to cut across its leeward edge, Iris said. It's made a little eddy where impatience goes to die. Perfect, Varric said, meaning it. I brought patience and a bad hinge. They drifted into the eddy's slow orbit. The relay's blink brushed instruments and turned them into furniture. Cyrus stared at his blank recording and let relief and hunger take their turns in his chest without moving his hands. Darrow's mouth set into a line that was not a scar and not far from one. Count us, Saran said. In 2. Out 4, Tessa whispered, and the ship breathed. The eddy let them slide through like a house letting quiet people pass. On the other side, a habit corridor took up their weight and carried it without asking for a conversation. Next, curtain 48 counts, Chiron warned. Keeper posture is curious. Curiosity kills speed, Varric muttered. Let's be boring and late until it yawns. They were, and it did. A flicker on Gray River. They were almost clear when Gray River shivered. A thin, panicked signature flared and went ragged along the corridor. Small engine, hot in the wrong places, hands on the yoke that didn't know how to be late. Not Accord, not Autom. Someone trying to live in the wrong neighborhood. Single skiff, Iris said, eyes gone distant in the way of someone listening to threads. Running loud. Keeper curtains reorienting. Darrow swore under his breath so it wouldn't have to be said out loud. They'll pull the curtain tight and comb the river. If they comb, Varric said, we look like hair. Saran's jaw worked. The ember at Tessa's chest warmed a fraction as if reminding them that some candles are not for storms. We can't broadcast, Chiron said. We can't ping. We can't be seen shepherding. Cyrus's hands were already open, but we can't watch them get pinned, either. Silence, then. The hard kind, the kind with a choice in it. Ira's voice came careful. If we dart, we wake the curtain. If we don't, the skiff wakes it anyway and teaches it to expect prey. Tessa's hum wavered a hair and then settled. We can't be their choir, she said, throat tight. But maybe we can be their alibi. How? Darrow asked, and hated himself for the word. Chiron did not look up. I can make the curtain curious about something else. Saran's eyes narrowed. Say the rest. Chiron's fingers moved in the air, reflex, an old musician remembering an old song. I have an antiquated alliance status handshake that marks a craft as maintenance, boring salvage on official errand. If I drop it in the relay's noise with a tiny delay, the keeper will tilt, just enough, to wonder if there's a bureaucratic mess it can bully. The skiff gets a breath to slip from under the edge. Broadcast? Saran asked. No, Chiron said. It's not transmission. It's posture. I signed the field, not the channel. The relay will think the world contains something it needs to interrogate that is not us and not the skiff. Something like us? Darrow said. His voice had a growl in it now. Yes, Chiron answered, because lies told to friends rot rooms. It will look like a Concord remnant running a dull errand a sector away. It will not point at the Accord. It will look like me, 15 years ago, doing the job I wish I had left earlier. How safe? Varric asked, already hating the question's shape. How safe are we now? Chiron countered, and no one pretended not to understand. Saran's mouth went hard. We choose together. Tessa's hand had found the ember without her asking it to. If we do this, she said, we do it plain. No secret. Cyrus glanced at Chiron and then at Saran. If we do nothing, that skiff becomes a lesson for our enemies. If we do this, we live with the cost together. Darrow's hands flexed on air that wanted to be a rifle. I don't like it. Chiron nodded once. Neither do I. Saran breathed in a long, small line and let it out. Do it, they said, and say what you did while you do it. Chiron closed his eyes. Old muscles remembered old control rooms. Old control rooms remembered him. He lifted his hands and didn't send. He shaped the field instead, the way a dancer makes a room aware of itself. An antique alliance handshake unfurled like a stamped form. Boring, officious, plausible. He made it late by a hair so it would smell human. He made it ugly so it would smell true. Posture in the relay, he said, voice level. Marked a maintenance run at Concord SP1 or 3. Not us. Not here. The curtain's turning its head. Ira's gaze snapped to the skiff signature. It slipped. Once. Twice. Under. They're out. Varric let a breath go through his teeth. His ruined arm ached like a confession. Curtain? Yawning, Chiron said softly. It thinks it has an excuse to be petty somewhere else. Saran didn't nod. They didn't blink. Good, they said. Now we live with it. The cost. The Yeti released them. Gray River smoothed. The relay's blink held, then softened, then held again like a man rereading a document to be certain he was right to be unkind. Raptor-One moved into safer habit with the kind of slowness you pay for and keep. When the pressure in their teeth eased, the ship found all 7 breaths at once. No one cheered. Work found them. Varric's fin checks, Ira's thread corrections, Darrow's knots relaying, Tessa's hum cooling to rest, Cyrus's hands finding the blank clay token, Saran doing a captain's math with no numbers in it. Only then did Darrow turn in his chair and look at Chiron without blinking. You used an alliance signature. Yes, Chiron said. You made it look like us. No, Chiron said. I made it look like what I was so the keeper would go peck at an old habit instead of learning our new ones. And if it learns to peck that habit and find us behind it next time, then I will teach it a different bad habit, Chiron said, a shade too fast. He forced his voice down. And I will do it after I ask you all. Silence. Not the kind the Autom make. The kind rooms need to stop themselves from deciding too quickly. Tessa's voice arrived small and exact. We said we would choose ugly together. I chose, Chiron said. No flinch. I chose with 3 breaths of time because that was all there was between a stranger's hull and a lesson our enemies would have learned too well. Cyrus watched him with an expression that used to be for audiences and had become, lately, for people. Would you do it again? I would say it out loud a beat sooner, Chiron answered, and looked at Saran because this is where captains do their jobs. Saran let the chair in their hollow settle on their bones. We need a rule for the small hours, they said. 3-breath grace. If the decision is life or trap and there is no time to circle the table, you act on the posture we named. Late, plain, stubborn. After the 3rd breath, if you can speak, you must speak, even if you cannot hear the answer. Within 10 breaths, you tell what you did and why. Chiron nodded once. I will carve it into my hands if I must. Darrow stared at the console until his jaw eased. I don't like it, he said again, not as a weapon, like a weather report. You don't have to, Saran replied. You have to carry it. They looked at Tessa. Tessa's mouth trembled and then firmed. I am angry and relieved, she said, staring at her own hands to find the words. I will hold both at once. If the Accord asks me later, I will say we kept our posture and broke our process and repaired it with a rule. Ira's shoulders dropped a notch. Not surrender, acceptance. The skiff lives to become a person again, she said quietly. I refuse to regret that. Varric made a rough sound that could have been a laugh in a language that didn't have laughter. Next time, he told Chiron, let me make you a hinge for your pride so it opens slower. Cyrus slid the blank clay token to Chiron with 2 fingers. Hold that until you don't want to talk, he said. Then talk anyway. Chiron placed his palm on the token. It was cool and clean and heavier than it looked. Understood. Saran raised a hand, palm down. The room allowed the moment to end without filing it under victory. Status, they said. Curtains drifting, Chiron answered, back to trade. Relay holding. Gray river behind. The pocket ahead if we keep our heads. Keep them, Saran said. The ember at Tessa's chest pulsed once. Ready, not eager. Between curtains. They crossed 3 more waiting rooms by doing as little as possible correctly. If doctrine pressed, they offered boredom. If habit tugged, they let it. Varric used spite as maintenance. Ira used wonder as calibration. Tessa used song as scaffolding, not performance. Cyrus used silence as content. Darrow used the truth of knots to keep hands honest. Chiron used questions to keep certainty late. Saran used choice to keep all of them from becoming tools.
At the edge of the relay's shadow, the ship felt lighter, no freer, just less explained. Cyrus breathed out and looked at the dark lens as if it were a friend doing him a favor by staying quiet. When we tell this one, he said, we tell the part where we were boring long enough to save a stranger. We tell it after they're out of the woods. Chiron said, we tell it after we're out of the woods, Varric added, which got them the kind of small, honest smiles that make rooms think about having a window someday. Ira's fingers tapped the console in 4s without noticing. The embers count keeps exact, she murmured, as if praising a student in a crowded class. Good candle. Tessa pressed the pouch with her palm, not to own it, to accompany it. We keep it banked until the hall wants it back. Saran watched the pocket unspool on the long view. The ring would unfold. The corridor would approve. The hall would offer bowls and rules, and a place to put their ugliest knots on the table without apology. Bring 7, Saran said, a little like a blessing, a little like an audit. Blind lens, Cyrus echoed, touching the drone. Leave room, Tessa finished, and the ship answered by not rushing.
Thank you for listening. If you would like to be notified about upcoming releases to the Raptor-One series, please subscribe. This has been a Bad Karma Drone production.